The memory care does require significantly more services because oftentimes they will need a lot of assistance with their IADLs. And so you have to staff it like that. You have to actually provide those services. We're seeing a lot of folks who get in memory care, just talking to lenders who are a little concerned when we say, hey, we're going into memory care right away. They're like, hey, well, everyone likes the idea of memory care because you can charge more per bed.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
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 Doctor! Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe. Have you ever thought, I don't have enough time or I'm too busy to invest in real estate? Well, today's guest was working on building a real estate investment company and underwriting 300 deals and getting under contract on deals while he was deployed to Baghdad, working in the emergency department. My friend, Dr. Tyler Miklovic, is on the podcast today. And it has been so cool to see his journey. He was one of my friends while we were in med school. He was a year behind me. And it's been really cool to see his journey through residency and now as an attending and building an incredible real estate company, doing flips and investing in residential assisted living. I'm super grateful that I was able to play just a small part in his journey. And I'm so excited to see the success that he's going to have going forward as he utilizes real estate investing and entrepreneurship to spend more time with his wife, Taylor, and his daughter, who is going to be born before this podcast episode even comes out. In this episode, we talk a lot about flipping. We talk about partnerships. We talk about residential assisted living. This episode was fantastic and incredibly inspiring. Tyler is an amazing guy who offered the opportunity for folks, if they want to reach out and learn how to flip or learn more about what it takes to build the team and operate flips and manage flips, he's willing to do that. So take him up on that, reach out to him if you're wanting to invest in one of his deals. Just awesome opportunity, awesome guy, super grateful for it. And in this podcast, we also talk about masterminds. If you're interested in joining the Rail Room Assisted Living Mastermind, I can promise you it is the perfect community, perfect place for you to have the experts, the operators, the accountability, the mentorship, the courses that you will need to buy your first or next residential assisted living home. So if you're looking for that or you're looking for a community, the Rail Room, RAL, Assisted Living Mastermind is for you. Without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode with my good buddy, Dr. Tyler Miklovic. Dr. Tyler Miklovic, welcome back to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. This is episode recording number 2, because the first one, amazing episode, but we had some technical issues. So excited to have you back and excited to catch up and see, gosh, things have progressed a lot just in like the 2 months in between recording. So it's really cool to hear about everything going on. How are things going in Texas?
Well, thanks for having me, Alex, for round 2. Things in Texas are going really, really well, man. My wife is due with our first child next week. We're having a beautiful baby girl, hopefully day before Thanksgiving. And that's what matters the most.
Yeah, man.
We'll get into real estate stuff. That's all that's on my mind. Right
Dude,
now.
that is awesome. Well, I'm super excited for you and Taylor, and get as much sleep as you can now because it's going to change. Those first couple nights in the hospital are like just miserable in terms of sleep. I always, I think about there's like a couple memes that are like guys trying to sleep on the little hospital beds. And it's like, why isn't anyone thinking about how terrible this is for me, for the dads, because you can't sleep in there when really it's the wives that are doing everything. So we have no room to complain. But man, life's going to change for the better in a couple days.
We've been waiting for it for a long time.
That's awesome. You'll crush it. Super excited to see her and hope everything goes well with the delivery. And man, that's good stuff. Lots of big changes. Well, for folks who don't know you, do you mind telling folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an emergency medicine doctor and I am in the Army, 3 years into my active duty commitment after residency. Planning to get out after next year, but have had a great time while I've been here. Actually, for those who don't know, Alex and I went to school together. We went to medical school at Medical College of Virginia, now VCU in Richmond, Virginia. And so we crossed paths for quite a few years now. And just watching you come up through this entire process has been really inspiring. So I appreciate it. But a little bit more about me. I got into interest in real estate, truly following you from afar just through social media over the past few years. So I have you to thank for the start and did a few years of learning and a lot of passive learning, and then actually got deployed last year to Baghdad. And during that time. For those who've been deployed, you have some downtime intermixed with periods of a lot of activity. But in the downtime, did a lot of active work with real estate, started a company and started doing a whole lot of underwriting and a whole lot of learning and trying to take an active role, and got to pretty quick success.
And yeah, definitely want to hit on deployment. And it's amazing to me to think about, like, I think you messaged me a couple of times about some apartment deals you were working on while you're in Baghdad. And I'm like, no one else can have any excuse because you're working in the ER in Baghdad and you're like crushing these underwriting deals and starting businesses and all this stuff, man. So it's been really cool to see your journey. And, honestly, and I say this genuinely, like hearing your story, I'm so grateful that you follow me on social media and that we're friends and that you got this jump into real estate. And I can say genuinely, like, if you were the only person who did this and got into this journey, it would all be worth it. So thanks for following along, and thanks for, most importantly, like having the balls, for lack of a better term, to take action and get started.
I appreciate it, man. The Baghdad thing was unique for sure. Doing the real estate learning, it's a pretty significant time zone difference, and doing walkthroughs at 2 a.m. in Baghdad back in Texas with a realtor and a partner who was actually my chief resident when I was an intern back in Central Texas, doing walkthroughs, getting up at 2 and 3 in the morning. And then you encouraged me to join the War Room Mastermind at that point. So I joined that, and I was doing all of those kind of live learning lectures or discussions all hours of the night. I mean, you need purpose at all times, I feel like, to keep moving forward. And that provided me a good amount of purpose in addition to we'll call it the activity that we were dealing with over there during that period. But it was well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you had a decent amount of activity while you were there. That's for sure. I think kind of folks don't really understand what all was going on in Baghdad at the time, and definitely, had some activity for sure. Are there any stories of things that happened there that you want to share, or anything crazy that happened while you're over there in Baghdad?
Yeah, I think there's some stories I can share, without sharing too much. So I was part of a field hospital, and we actually were planning on a very relaxed, chill deployment. And because not a lot of activity had been happening for quite some time. And on the plane ride over, we stop somewhere, I think in Europe, but we get some cell signal, and we realize that Hamas attacked Israel, and that our entire outlook had just changed drastically as we were in the air. So big mind shift, kind of frame shift, and what we had to do, what we had to prepare for. I mean, we had gone through all the preparatory drills and whatnot and done validation exercise. We were ready to go, but it's a little different when you're a few hours away and it's really going to happen. So yeah, there was some activity at times that we weren't expecting. And especially, 48 hours after landing, we were already taking. So I would say now, having some time to reflect, I'm very glad that I was put in the position at the time, and it just reinforced my purpose behind doing what I did, signing up. It wasn't just for, the scholarship to get through medical school. It really provided something I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And I can't trade that for anything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's super cool to hear that. And what was it like? Because you were 2 years out of residency at that point, or a year and a half out of residency at that point? What was it like?
Like a year and 2 months.
What was it like going from residency basically right into Baghdad? Like, was that terrifying and you found out you're going, or did you feel pretty prepared and ready to go?
I tried to prepare myself. I took residency fairly seriously, and then afterwards I kind of sought out some high acuity ERs to work in, kind of around within driving distance, to try to make sure, because I knew that I was likely going to go during that time period. Didn't know there was going to be a lot of activity. I just wanted to be ready for whatever came our way. I felt as prepared as I could a year out of residency, I guess, but it's a little different when you see a million, kind of a lot of the same patients again and again and again, I guess, in the community ERs. But when you have a soldier who comes into the ER who was not expecting to be there, and you weren't expecting to see them, and they were injured in true combat, it's different. No matter how much you prepped, it's a little different.
Absolutely, man. I can't imagine, but grateful, for your service and what you did over there. Were you and Taylor married at the time, or just dating when you're in Baghdad?
Yeah, we were married. We've been married since my intern year of residency.
Nice.
So yeah, it was tough leaving, and both of us knew that was likely going to happen, especially emergency medicine. We get deployed fairly regularly. Yeah. We knew it may even happen again. We knew it was a good possibility. So doesn't make it a whole lot easier, but we both signed up for it.
That's a thing too that you hit on that's super important. You both sign up for it. It really is, like your spouse is so integral and such a huge part of the team when it comes to deployments and being in the military and just extra stuff that they have to deal with that, typically in the civilian world you wouldn't have to, or just even the unknown of like, they may or may not deploy, or we may or may not have to move, and just a lot of things that go into it. So yeah, it's a tough process to think through and work through, I'm sure. But you've always had, well, one, you're just a total stuff, so that helps. And then you've always had a good head on your shoulders and realize what matters most, which is family, of course, and serving your country. But yeah, I think that helps when those priorities are aligned. Let's take a step back, Tyler, to when you started getting interested in real estate and educating yourself and so forth. What was your initial thought or plan? And maybe, what were some things that were helpful for you? If someone's in your shoes, like they're in residency, they're thinking, hey, I'm ready to invest in real estate. What would you tell them to kind of get started?
Yeah. And I teach residents now, and some of them ask me that because they know I'm getting more and more into it. And what I tell them, as far as if you're that early, my approach is not the right approach necessarily, but in residency, your priority should be residency. You got to be the best doc you possibly can, period, for your patients. You have one chance at it. You have a finite period of time to learn everything you can. You don't want to be the one kind of dragging up old practice patterns and things like that forever. So in residency, that should be your priority. And I tell them that all the time. However, if they want to listen to things on the way home or on the way in, I actually sent your podcast to a whole bunch of people. I talk about bigger pockets if they want something additional. But for residency, the podcast, I'd say just passive listening. If you have time and you're super interested, reading some of those intro books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, things like that. And then I often toss them my favorite, which is super nerdy, but Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. That just spoke to me as far as doing what the government wants to get your money back in taxes. The whole thought process behind why the tax code is written the way it is and why it supports real estate investing just hit home for me. So that's the book. If they're super interested and they're willing to read, I'll always advise.
That's great. I have not read that book. I know Tom and I've heard him speak a lot. He's incredible mind when it comes to taxes and how you can leverage all those, loopholes, if you will, or different tax strategy to put more money in your pocket. And it's something that doctors really need to take seriously because we pay so much in taxes, especially when we're, in the civilian world. You and I are lucky because a third of our income is not taxed at all. So we're grateful for that. Of course, we make way less, but no, it doesn't equal out at all. Especially now that I'm on the other side looking at civilian jobs. It does not equal out at all. But more important too, once we're out of the military, we're making more, for tax strategy is going to be really important. But yeah, man, that's great advice. How did you get from the education stage to getting started? What did that look like for you?
I would say getting from the education stage to actually doing something was, I knew we wanted to be protected. So we knew we needed to get an LLC together, and I knew we needed to start finding properties, very basic things. And if you don't have an LLC in place, I feel like that you're not organized enough to actually start moving if you want to be adequately protected. And so it was always kind of the plan with one of my co-residents, and I guess Phil, my chief resident, when I was an intern, we kind of had a plan to essentially start getting into real estate. We just talked about it on the golf cart a few times, and they knew that I was listening to your podcast all the time, reading what I could, and I wanted to start taking action. They were all about it. My other partner, Eric, he's a business mind savant, and it was a perfect pairing of the three of us. So we put an LLC together, and we wanted to go into commercial. And so I joined the war room that you recommended, and I absorbed every ounce of information that I could as fast as I could. And I started making connections and being able to ask people very direct questions that, you can't Google answers to. What do you do in this situation? Why do you think this underwrite is conservative enough? Is there anything else you would watch out for in this area? So that was extremely helpful, seeing people, 1, 2, 5 steps ahead of you who could answer those questions and are willing to answer those questions just because they see you're putting in the work.
Yeah, man, that's huge. Masterminds, I think people are hesitant sometimes to join a mastermind or pay for a mastermind, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, that community is so important. The accountability is so important. The information you can find, the implementation is what's the hard part. And I think that's what a mastermind really helps to solve. And it just expedites time so much faster. I mean, and I don't know for your case, because you're a high achiever and crushing it, but the majority of folks are going to, the majority of folks are going to just keep kicking tires for another year or 2 years before they get started. But when you're in a mastermind that's holding you accountable and really trying to push you forward, but also pull you up along with them, it just expedites that time so much faster. And then you're doing more deals and you're way ahead of time. And you're a great example of that. You're crushing it, with the flips and now the assisted living stuff that's going on. And I just think that folks sometimes think oh, what do I have to gain from a mastermind? Or I don't want to pay X dollars for a mastermind, but they don't think about that long-term growth and how much faster they're going to be able to accumulate wealth wealth by joining, if that makes sense.
I mean, I can give you a direct example of that. And I was in Baghdad and I would meet with we had a little squad that we would meet with. And one guy who kind of was, a few steps ahead of me where I wanted to get to said, hey, if you're really going to get into commercial, and I was looking at apartment complexes at the time, you need 300 before you find one. You go really underwrite 300 and then you're going to find one. If you find one sooner, amazing, but you need to really get to 300. And I just basically put that sticky note on the wall, if you will. And I said, I'm going to get to 300. I was doing multiple a day, no matter where they were. I was just trying to get experience. And then the ones I felt strong about, I was able to pass them on to other people in the mastermind and be like, hey, what do y'all think about this? There's nowhere else where I could get that immediate feedback, immediate learning. And I mean, not to sound arrogant, but I feel like I got very good at them very quickly just because I had experienced folks willing to teach and they could see that if I was putting out that amount of work, that I was serious.
You have that safety net too. It makes it a much safer experience because you're, folks that are kind of overseeing or looking at your deals and saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And that saves you from a potential bad investment too. I mean, I think about it almost from, a medical training perspective of like, hey, you have to start in med school and you're just absorbing all this information and all this knowledge to then try and figure out what you kind of want to do next, but you don't really know. So then you're doing your rotation 3rd and 4th year and you have to make that decision. Okay, do I want to do medicine? Do I want to do surgery? And then you have to figure out what you're going to specialize in. And it's the same thing for real estate. Like it's okay to try things out, figure out what you want to do before you pick your specialty. And then regardless of what specialty you pick, you still have to work with other specialists and you still have to have people on your team that are going to help you grow or answer the questions you don't have. And so it's the same process in real estate. And I tell folks all the time, like if you can go to medical school and finish residency, like you can crush it in real estate. It's a different way of thinking. It's things that we don't know. But if you can do the work that we've done, you're absolutely going to be successful if you put the time in.
If you're willing to put in that same amount of effort, you will crush real estate. It's just, I think you get into it and you've done medical school, like I don't want to put that amount of effort. And truly, like, let's be honest, I have not put in the medical school level of effort into real estate, but if you know you have that in you. And so when it comes down and like a deal is going to go through or it's not, can you put in that 4 hours of extremely high level critical thinking and putting the resources together to make it work, or it doesn't? And I think we have the ability to do that. And we've proven the ability to do that. So I wouldn't say medical school is useless for this because I think it taught you, those high stress 4-hour tests.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah, fortitude, great. You learn how to like manage a team. We learn how to make decisions under pressure. I mean, there's so many things that translate so well from medicine into real estate. That's awesome. So after the 300 or working on 300 underwriting deals, what kind of came up next for you?
I realized commercial real estate was not for us, but I'll give you a story about that. After numerous walkthroughs of me more just sending my partner, Phil and his wife around Central Texas to look at these things for Baghdad, we ended up getting an offer accepted. It's just a small apartment complex right near the military base where we're stationed. And we got under contract. And for commercial real estate, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, but you can't inspect all of the units unless they're vacant until you are under contract for agreed on per price. And you obviously have the seller's closures, so they should tell you if there's anything significantly wrong. And long story short, that was not at all the case with us. We went through and ended up getting our inspection back after doing several hundred underwrites and getting the financing in order with, just getting a local banker to trust us and really getting the buy-in for this deal. And we got into basically the rest of the complex and it was absolutely trashed and it was going to be hundreds of thousands more of just CapEx. That was, I think, one HVAC unit of the 6 or 10 that were there was functioning. And they were all 4 to 6 ton units. I mean, it was just a dumpster fire that we had to back out of. And so we had all this momentum. The momentum, fell off a cliff. And so we said, let's start doing some full cycle deals. The easiest, fastest way for us to do that was flips. And so we already had the team together because we were planning to do this, apartment rehab BRRRR type thing. And we were real excited about it, but I said, let's just doing some full cycle deals to get going. And we were working the same real estate agent and brokers, and deals started flowing our way. And we were able to use the cash we had and just start flipping, testing the team, taking the parts that we don't like and keeping the parts we do. And it's become so successful so quickly that now we're at the point where we're out of money and we're already taking private investors, just kind of friends and family and people who've kind of heard even adjacently, just professionally, that what we're doing, and being able to pay 10% on their money and still making plenty of a margin to continue on. And so the flipping turned out to be far more successful. And I think it's is here to stay, which was not the original plan.
That wasn't the original plan last time we talked 2 months ago. So I'm excited to dive more into that. I wanted to hit two things real quick, Tyler, going back. So one, amazing that you were under contract on a multi-family property from Baghdad. I still think that's so cool. But also, you're going to save folks a lot of money because that happens commonly where you can only see 1 or 2 units when you go to tour the property. And it just always tends to conveniently be the units that are in the best shape. And so it's so important to like make sure you're doing your proper inspections, you're doing your proper due diligence, even maybe getting an extra set of eyes in, whether you have the inspector go and then a handyman go or someone else, or you're getting extra sets of eyes to make sure from a due diligence perspective, you're not walking into a mess. Because, hypothetically, what if you guys just saw those 1 or 2 units that look decent and then you walked in, you're like, hey, only 1 HVAC works and all this, we're $100,000 more renovations in the whole, and you had investors on the deal. Like it could just be a really bad experience. So that's a great piece of advice for folks that I wanted to make sure we pulled out of your story.
I think not completing that deal was the best decision that I've made so far in real estate. I mean, if we had started off on that foot and pushed it forward, because we were genuinely considering pushing it forward and just forcing it. Like we could make the numbers work. We could squeeze the cap rate even more. I mean, we were really trying to make it work in our heads and just got to the point where logically, look, the math doesn't math and we need to move on. And that was really, really helpful. The folks in the mastermind were super supportive of that and they knew how much work went into it.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, and it gets hard, especially when emotions get wrapped in, and it's like, hey, this is the first deal. I really want this to happen. I've already underwrote 300 other deals. This is the first one that makes sense. It would be very reasonable to be like, I'm making this work no matter what, and then the math doesn't math. And then honestly, you probably wouldn't want to invest in real estate ever again if that deal went poorly on the first one. And so, yeah, it's like you mentioned, man, sometimes walking away from a deal is the right decision going forward, and it definitely was for you. The flips, so what did that look like? What did the first flip look like? What are you guys working on now? And congrats on taking investor capital. That's awesome.
Yeah. First flip, we're trying to specialize just around the military base here, single family, kind of the 3-2 brick, if you will, basic perfect soldier housing, but take 20, 30-year-old houses that need light rehab. We're trying not to do anything structural and basically just churn. And so we have our profit margin that we underwrite to. We are extremely conservative and been able to beat every underwrite so far. And that's in a market that had an 8% downturn during the period that we've done this. And at one point, our realtor said, you're the only investor group who's actually breaking even on our flips, and we were beating our underwrites because the market was deteriorating so quickly in the area around Austin. Austin had one of those biggest spikes in the country during COVID, and then now is appropriately cooling off. We're able to be successful, and so they keep bringing these deals to us. And now we kind of have so much deal flow, if you will, and we have the team to do it. So one of us, because we have the systems in place now, one of us, my buddy Phil, who was all in this from the beginning, he wants to continue on the flipping side of things, and we're kind of running that here. And then I wanted to always try my hand at the residential assisted living space. So that's kind of where I'm transitioning to next.
I mean, so excited to hear that for you guys. What, with Phil and your other partner, what do you feel like made a good partnership? Or folks who are thinking about partnering, what would you say for them to think about when they're doing a partnership?
Yeah, you need to, I think, partner to your weaknesses, if you will. So I am probably the poster child for shiny object syndrome. I think everything's an amazing idea. I think that correlates to being decent at networking and motivating and whatnot, but also you need some common sense or some logic and some Excel sheets thrown at you at times. And so that's my buddy Eric. He's kind of like a business-minded savant in that way. I mean, he looks at things in black and white in regards to business, and he's a perfect match in that way. And then Phil is the guy who will get down and dirty and get the work done with like hands-on. He wants to do it. He was just our flip last week. I was there. He was in like a full hazmat suit, just about cleaning out a disgusting refrigerator that was cut, that one of our contractors threw up when we opened the refrigerator. He ran out to the front yard and threw up. So Phil's a hands-on guy. So it's perfect for him to kind of continue holding the flip side of things, and our systems are in place, and Eric and I will obviously be there if he needs us. But I think that's why Eric and I kind of want to do a lot of the higher level business stuff with kind of RAL, and then help with the flipping side when need be.
That's awesome. What was it like building out the systems, building out the team for flips? Maybe what were some things that you learned with that first flip?
Yeah, I would say disaster after disaster, but I think trial by fire is how you have to do it. And I would say that we went into it very conservatively, so we knew we had some buffer, and we had to get enough of buffer on the deal to know that we're going to make mistakes and know that contractors were either going to overcharge or not charge enough. And we also spent a lot of time even working 60, 70 hours a week. Like we interviewed, I think 10 or 12 different contracting teams and like in person, walked the property, really tried to make a partnership almost with them, not a financial partnership, but a partnership saying, hey, we want to keep doing this in this area. What can you provide? And we really tried to find kind of a one-man show, if you will, where it was one guy who had the network to do everything we needed to instead of subcontracting out to 12 or 15 different people to do everything you need in the house. And we ended up finding him just through kind of the Phil's network here in the area. And he's been amazing. And he's got a whole team of guys, including his son, who's on every project. And we haven't found anything they can't do yet, except for a roof, which is amazing. And so we might as well just keep them in business too. And it's kind of a win-win. They're super happy. We're super happy with their work.
Yeah, that's such a crucial connection. And definitely, you find good people, you want to treat them like gold and keep growing together, which is awesome. So the flipping business, you said you've kind of got more deals right now than you have capital for. How are you finding the deals? Where have you been able to find the most deals? And then, of course, at the end, we'll definitely hit how folks can invest with you as well.
Yeah, just finding deals for us. We've been lucky in that we just built relationships with brokers in the area, kind of through the military. A lot of military folks are married to realtors, I've learned. And so I think brokers just see a lot of off-market deals come across their desks. And for whatever reason or another, they don't have time to go on market. They need cash in 2 weeks. It's going to get foreclosed or they're going to move. They don't have time to do the whole rigmarole of going on market. And it's kind of a win-win because the broker still gets their seller's agent fee, but they bring it to us. We can cash close quickly. We are able to underwrite quickly. We're able to put everything together needed quickly because we have the systems now. And so we offer a 7 or 10 day close as long as we can get the inspection in time. And so far that's paid off. And we've been able to get the margins doing that to make that all worth it.
That's huge. Well, and you guys took action, right? Like that, the brokers know, hey, if I bring this deal to Tyler and Phil, like they're going to get it done. And so that's huge too, to take action and know that like, hey, this lead's not going wasted by offering up to you guys. So that's awesome, man. Well, let's pivot to assisted living. What do you like about residential assisted living, or why are you thinking about, investing in residential assisted living?
So as excited as I was talking about the flipping business, I'm probably 3 times as excited about the residential assisted living business. It's going to provide a lot more purpose. And this was something I knew I wanted from the beginning to get into it. And I just wanted to kind of prove myself in real estate a little bit first and then move into something that I could do longitudinally, I could do forever and provide purpose. And still, at the end of the day, business is business and you need to make money, but I want to be able to leave something behind. And I also see in the ER, we get what we call grandma drop-offs all the time, where the big box facility has absolutely no idea who that patient is, what their name is, what their medical problems are when they drop them off. They print out a packet for you that often hasn't been updated in 4 to 5 years. And you call the facility, this is actually a real story from 2 weeks ago, call the facility and they say, well, we don't have that patient on record here as being a resident. In fact, the EMS crew said that, no, that is where we picked them up. And they could not provide a record of that patient being, or that resident being a resident there. So I want to avoid that for all of our seniors if I can. I want to change that entire injury if I can, because that is, sorry for it, that's kind of bullshit. Like that's absolutely not how our seniors should be cared for. And having that level of care in a home does provide better outcomes. Absolutely. Because one, you can't have 25-to-1 resident to caregiver ratios because you can only fit, 8, 12, max 16 residents in a home. So first of all, those ratios are impossible. And the home environment provides a much more comfortable setting for them to spend their final years. And it's not like they're institutionalized or in a hospital setting. And so, outside of real estate, the real estate makes sense, but just from what I want to be able to tell my daughter who's being born next week why I'm doing this is so easy to talk about.
Yeah, it's such a fulfilling investment. And you're exactly right, man. Like, I think that's why doctors relate so well to residential assisted living and have so much interest, because we see the bad. We've rotated through the gross nursing homes. We've seen patients with the pressure ulcers that they should have never gotten. Like, it's got to change. I completely agree, man. I'm so excited that you're in the RAL room and that you guys are going to be, opening up these homes in Wisconsin, and who knows going forward. But there's just so much demand and so little supply. We were talking about this before the podcast, like we're already 1 million beds short. Everyone listening to this could open, 50 homes and we still would be way short in terms of beds that are needed for seniors. And I think about exactly what you mentioned, like, it's unbelievable to me that a facility doesn't even know a resident's there. That's definitely because they don't have enough staff, which means they certainly don't have enough caregivers. And who knows what the outcome is or what the shape is of the other residents that are there. It's just unbelievable. And I can't even fathom in my mind putting my grandparents in a home that's like that, right? And then you have residential assisted living that's ultimately typically a cheaper alternative in an independent home-like setting where they're able to like be more independent, get personalized care, and have that community setting that they're not going to have in a big box facility. Like it just makes so much sense. And I'm so glad for this podcast and our podcast and the Mastermind and some other things that are happening that this is starting to get out there. And so we can open more of these homes so we can take better care of seniors going forward.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I could not agree with you more. And we've talked about this outside of this podcast so many times. And I'm hoping it's a dialogue that kind of starts nationwide. But in the meantime, before it becomes mainstream, let's open some of these and be kind of the spotlight of how to do it. And we want to focus on memory care specifically. And we've come across a lot of memory care facilities with, patients who have what they're calling severe behavioral concerns that they can't possibly live there, and then realize that they have 14-to-1 caregiver or resident to caregiver ratios with severely demented patients. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's just the logic behind the current state of assisted living is flawed. I mean, they have everybody on the totem pole has to make their own cut. And so there's a lot of institutional investing on those big box facilities. And so you have to take everyone at every level of the investment has to get their cut. And by the end, there's not a lot of money left over for providing the right care. And so we're hoping to, ex-nay a lot of that and do it right. We're just going to be this kind of a small outfit to start and see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. For folks who don't know the difference between like just regular residential assisted living and memory care, do you mind just kind of explaining the difference between those?
Yeah, it's all based on the level of needs of the residents. And regular assisted living, generally, they can take care of most of their ADLs and IADLs on their own. They can provide occasional assistance, and really good ratios for that are, 1 to 8 can very easily take care of one caregiver, to 8 residents can easily take care of their needs and be more of like a activity coordinator, if you will, and just provide a quality of life. And the memory care does require significantly more services because oftentimes they will need a lot of assistance with their IADLs. And so you have to staff it like that. You have to actually provide those services. We're seeing a lot of folks who get in memory care, just talking to lenders who are a little concerned when we say, hey, we're going into memory care right away. They're like, hey, well, everyone likes the idea of memory care because you can charge more per bed. But I guess a lot of these kind of large institutional investors are getting into it and not providing any additional services. They're just trying to get that additional profit margin, if you will. And so I think we're going into it with the right mindset. And that's why we're doing it, is because we think we can do it differently and correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great summary. Dr. Ǩľoe Ǩiľman was on the podcast a bit ago, which of course you know from the Row Room, and she's building a memory care mansion. So if folks are interested in learning more about memory care, check out that episode as well. So Tyler, you're partnering, correct, with some folks to open a home in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Yeah, we met them through the Row Room. So Eric, Phil, and I, just after doing our flips in Texas, I joined the Row Room, and because they knew I was very interested in it, and they fully supported it. Say, hey, if you really start down this path, we're in it with you. And so I was able to meet, her name's Courtney, her husband Josh. They're incredible folks. She's an NP in Wisconsin, and their interest was operating it in their community. They're very well tied in their community. They care a lot about their community, and they know there's a need. And us kind of being all over the country, we can help with a lot of the higher level business type stuff that goes along with it. And we're definitely going to go out and visit and do what we can as far as taking flights out. But she's going to be doing the day-to-day. She's going to have a lot of sweat equity in it. And it would also we were looking for the right partner, and I think we found them.
Yeah, great partnership opportunity and potential. And, you bring up a great point too, that like the partnerships, I think the theme of this episode maybe is like good partnerships can change everything. And I'm super grateful with Charlie and Luke. They're the best partners I could ask for. And, I think about folks who are listening to this and are like, hey, I really want to get started in assisted living, but I cannot be the one that's operating it, or I have zero desire to be taking care of residents. You're a perfect example of like, hey, well, maybe you're the capital partner. You're kind of, the business guy, the business savant, if you will, as you mentioned before, and you're working that piece and helping them find homes. And of course, you understand like how to run renovations and how we can, find good contractors and all those other things that are super important. Like Courtney is working on the operations side of things. And so there's plenty of opportunity for partnership like that. So folks just have to reach out and like find those operators or find folks that are interested, and maybe you can be that other half that they need.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we just wanted our goals to align. And so we kind of each have a cut of the pie, if you will, on both sides of the real estate and the business, just so, it's not us and them. I mean, we really wanted our goals to align. And I really think all successful partnerships need that being the major tenet that you follow. Like your goals need to be aligned and shared. And if they're not, when things go poorly, even on a single project, the whole thing could fall apart.
Yeah.
But as long as you keep that in mind, I think you'll be successful.
Yeah, partnerships like a marriage. Yeah.
Yes.
And having those tough decisions tough conversations, willing to make those hard decisions together, super important. And we talk about it, Charlie and Luke and I, a lot, like anytime we're making a big decision or maybe like there's a little bit of tension about something, like, hey, regardless of the business opportunity or the money that could potentially be made, like our partnership and our friendship is way more important than that. And so we've always just tried to put each other first. And like, maybe that looks like, hey, the business is going a little bit slower because we're really busy right now working on other projects, and who knows, but we're always willing to like, hey, have that conversation and speak up. And that's super important as you're growing as a company and figuring out how to scale and, how you can continue to expedite things that are getting done. It's tough, especially when you're working a full-time job as you're doing and you're getting ready to be a new dad and all these other things too. It's tough, and having those partners that can help pick up the pieces and help fill in the spots where you might not be as strong can be a game changer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't really want to do a project by myself ever, I don't think, just because, I know at some point may have a partnership go poorly, but so far, and just be very direct and upfront and honest about what you want, what you can provide, and hopefully it's reciprocated.
Yeah, a piece of a deal is better than no deal at all. And so, you can definitely go faster with partnerships that are done right. You can learn so much more. The networking opportunities are, much greater. It's a great way to do it for sure, man. That's awesome. So where are you at in the process right now with the homes in Wisconsin, or if folks are listening to this, how could they potentially help you with that process?
So let me back up a little bit. When I got into real estate, I knew eventually at some point you talk to enough people and you're probably going to need someone else's money to get where you want to go. And I didn't want to really take anybody besides a bank's money before I had a track record of, I know how to do this. And so that's kind of where we did with the flips. With the flips, I wanted to do, financed them exclusively on our own. We said, we're not going to risk anybody else's money. We're going to keep track of every single number and be able to walk potential investors down the line through what we did, why we did it, how we did it. So I am envisioning the same type of journey with my residential assisted living ventures, but that piece, I don't think I'm ready yet. I'm not ready to confidently say I can risk your money, even though all private investors have a lien on the property and everything. I want to prove myself. So that's why we're only kind of taking in any potential private investment with the flips right now, because I'm very confident in that system. We've beaten every underwrite. We've documented. Eric's done a great job kind of documenting our journey and documenting our outcomes and who we've used, the problems we've run into. We're super open. And part of that too is I feel confident and educated enough now in that space where if someone wants to invest in me and they want to learn, I get excited being able to walk them through the deal they just invested in. So if they want to try to go do it wherever they live, it becomes more of a reality. Or if they want to do one or two to get a few under their belt with us. And every other day I'll call you on the way home from work and tell you how things are going with the project. And we'll send you all the breakdown of numbers. We'll send you our full underwrite. Completely behind the curtain about how the deal works. And so hopefully you can go do it on your own if you want to. And so that's why right now kind of only accepting private investment money for the flip side of things. But hopefully down the line, we talk in a year or two and I say, you remember what I said about the flips? I'm now doing that with assisted living, but I'll work with myself first.
No, that's an absolutely great way to think about it. It's very apparent that you understand the weight of taking other people's hard-earned money, and I remember the first time we raised capital at all, man, it was terrifying. And then it happened. I'm like, I can't believe that I have this opportunity and that someone trusts us enough with their hard-earned money to do that and to provide them returns. And it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And I also love what you're saying, that your abundance mindset of hey, I'll show you how to do this. I'm not holding my cards to the chest. I'll show you exactly what we're doing. You can go do this too. And that's an incredible opportunity. And if folks are hearing this and hey, I want to learn how to flip, or I want to, figure out if this is something that I want to do, this is an awesome opportunity to partner with Tyler and Eric and with Phil and learn the ropes of flipping while also getting a good return. It's awesome.
Yeah, we've had a few folks who are just saying, hey, your next house, like we will finance, but they want to be part of like the underwriting as we go. Cause we don't purchase every property that we underwrite. We underwrite probably at 40-1, something like that before we offer and close on something. So, and they want to be part of that because that's super important if they're going to do it on their own. And so we get the most purpose out of teaching at this because we're going to make plenty of money in our medical career. And then this is just going to hopefully provide some money for sure, but more time at home and more purpose and bring the family into it and have everyone's buy-in just makes for a way better outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the freedom, the flexibility to practice medicine and live life how you want to. And, we were talking beforehand how I'm kind of in that right now. I've been really fortunate with our business ventures and real estate and now looking for jobs and, have the ability, and I say this humbly and so gratefully, have the ability to, if we want to work part-time, we can. If we want to take some time off, we can. And I'm just super grateful for that. And it's so cool for me to see you and how much growth you've had over the last couple of years and what I know, is going to continue to skyrocket as we talked about beforehand going forward. So it's been awesome, man, to follow your journey.
I really appreciate that, Alex. And for those who are just getting started, I am wide open about this. I am 2 years into this and I know there's a lot more work to do, but if you go at it with half of the effort that you put into your health profession school, you're all right.
Yeah. And there's plenty of people like you, like me, that we want to help you. We want to help pull you up along with us and show you the journey and go from there. The more docs that get into real estate, that get into entrepreneurship, I genuinely believe, one, we're going to be way happier. We're going to have way more freedom and time with our families, which is super important. But we're also going to provide a lot better patient care. And maybe we're seeing less patients, but I would rather see, 20% less patients, but know I have the ability to spend more time with them and provide way better care and form better relationships with them because I have that passive income coming in. And so I think it's just a fantastic opportunity.
I agree. I think having this supplement the medical income and not have to go in for your 7th and 8th day in a row it's worth its weight in gold.
Not having to moonlight, to pay off the Tesla or whatever, and so it's a great opportunity. I'm still driving the same car from med school, a 2011 Volkswagen Jetta. It looks terrible. A tree fell on it while we were in Richmond and I hit a deer. There's a bunch of hail damage. Yeah, man, it's been fixed a bit, but yeah.
I was doing the same until about a month ago, which our baby's due next week. And my wife said, hey, time to no longer drive that. We need to upgrade. So we finally did, but it's reasonable to have a family car.
Did you get the minivan?
No, I got a truck, but I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, sweet, Tyler. Well, I want to be respectful of your time and respectful of the fact that you could be a dad at any point in time. If folks want to reach out to you, they want to know more, or they want to invest with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our LLC is just Nurdoc Properties, and it's spelled NURDOC Properties. And it's just the name of our business at gmail.com, Nurdoc Properties at Gmail. And if anybody's interested in seeing what projects we have coming up, I probably won't be sharing much publicly about the residential assisted living until we get it going. But flips as they come across and we get things under contract, anybody who's interested, we can get on an email list and we'll just send them out to you. If you're interested, great. If you're not, whatever, we'll send you the next one. And if you want to learn a little bit on the way, just let us know.
That's awesome, man. Love that. We'll be sure to include your email in the show notes for folks who want to reach out. Tyler, man, this has been awesome. I'm looking forward to having you back in a year and seeing just how much more has happened going forward. So thanks so much for your time and enjoy upcoming paternity leave and time with your family, man. I'm excited for you.
Can't wait, brother. Really appreciate this.
Yeah. But with that, it's been Dr. Tyler Miklovic and Dr. Alex Schloe with another episode of the Physicians and Properties podcast. Signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.